Welcome again to another episode of Let's Talk with Asian Sunday. So good to have you back and so good to see you continuously engaging in our talk show. Thank you so much for watching our previous episodes. I'm really ecstatic at the feedback that we have had so far. Now we're back again, obviously, but this time, this episode is slightly different. Normally, I have a group of people around the table where we discuss and debate various issues. This time, however, I have just two people around the table. And the reason for that is because we currently have a general election in the UK. And if you didn't know that, where have you been? So joining me today are two former MPs, one for the Conservative Party for the Shipley ward and one for the Labour Party for Bradford West. I've invited them to tell us a little bit more about what they did for Bradford whilst being MPs and what they plan to do if they got re-elected again in this general election. So let's meet Philip Davies of the Conservative Party. He first became an MP for the Shipley constituency in 2005, so he's been an MP for quite some time and he's hoping to be re-elected again for the Shipley ward. And we will also be meeting Shah. She's a fairly new MP for the Labour Party and she was elected in 2015. She now hopes to be re-elected again for the Bradford West constituency as the Labour candidate for the area. So let's meet them and let's talk about elections. So welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time out. Obviously, it's a very cold winter. We were just talking about you guys campaigning. What's been the responses so far as you've been out campaigning again?
Well, it's cold. Nobody really wants to open the door. Because you can't door knock in the morning or during the day because people are working. And then by the evening it's too cold and wet. And so the campaigning is really left to the weekends. And on the door, it's really, really mixed bag with Brexit, with with the local issues, austerity comes in. It really is a mixed bag, but overall, I get a positive response.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think Naz is right. You get whenever you go knocking on doors, you get a mixed response. You get some people who support you, some people who are against you, some people are fed up that we've got another election, some people are fed up that they've had to open the door in the cold weather. So you get a mixed bag, but it's always good for I think anybody in politics to go out and knock on doors because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So
especially in minus temperatures.
Absolutely, it's character building.
Brilliant. So I'm going to go directly straight to the very first question. Both of you were former MPs. Obviously, Philip, you've been an MP for much longer than Naz. You were 2005 and obviously more recently. The direct question everybody always says, the general question is, well, my MP's not done anything for me before, so what are they going to do different now? So I'm going to open it up on that question. Let's start with you, Philip. What would you say to that?
Well, I think every MP, we all get, probably about 1,000 emails a week. You get, letters. Actually, the thing that you do most of all, really, is helping people with individual problems. And actually, the most satisfaction you ever get as an MP is helping people with their individual problems, whether it's with their housing or the benefit system or with a private company or whatever it might be. Bradford Council, I spent half my life writing to the Chief Executive of Bradford Council. And so... I think lots of people who have actually had direct help from their MP will know what help and support they get. But in terms of other things, more recently I've been really pleased that I've managed to secure up to £25 million to be invested in Shipley Town Centre to help to regenerate it. I'm very pleased at the moment that we've just managed to block 500 houses being built on the green belt in Burley and Wharfdale, which Bradford Council passed, and I managed to get called in and the Secretary of State has blocked it, which would have been a huge blight on the local countryside and the local environment, so I'm absolutely delighted about that. So there's every day, every week there's something that's going on. I'm trying to get a new council for my area outside of Bradford Council area. I'm trying to get a Shipley Eastern bypass. I've managed to secure a feasibility study from the government to pay for that. So there's all these things going all the time where you're trying to help individuals with their own individual problems, but also looking at the bigger picture to try and help with infrastructure projects and things like that in your constituency. So it's never ending, and you never finish, because there's always more that you want to do.
And we'll come back to what more you want to do, but let Naz tell us a little bit about what she was doing as former MP of Bradford West, and how now, if she was elected again, she'll...
What I'll be doing.
Yeah.
I think Philip's absolutely right. In terms of individual cases, we have a massive, and I'm really, really proud of some of the achievements, and it's whether it's me or whether it's my team in Bradford, because they're the ones that hold the fort whilst we're off in London holding the government to account. And we have some real successes from people who haven't had a passport for 15 years because of bureaucracy, and then getting some involvement from an MP and actually getting a passport and passing all of those things. And you have lots of chocolates delivered and thank you cards, which are really, really nice to kind of... I only get them on WhatsApp.
These are from them as well.
Yeah, just joking. you only get them on... I only ever see them on WhatsApp. Now we've got we've had another card today, so it kind of like it makes it worth a while. And those housing and immigration is a big one, but in opposition it's harder. So what we're really in opposition, it's very much about holding the government to account and trying to get things done. What I find has been useful is all the MPs working together with Bradford Breakthrough, talking about Bradford, where, because Philip is in government, he's managed to be able to get the ministers to attend, whether it's the Transport Minister, whether it's looking at being able to support Bradford Literature Festival, whether it's being able to support the bids that Bradford are making, and just making sure that we're not getting a bad deal for residents, really. Whether it's I'm proud of the Maintain Nurseries campaign I've worked really, really closely with local schools, local nurseries, maintained nurseries, the funding formula, challenging that, and it is all we can do in opposition, is try to influence and get the best deal for Bradford.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, if elected, what do you, we'll start with you, Philip, propose you'll do for Bradford?
Well, I always say to people, I'm not the MP for Bradford. I'm the MP for Shipley and Bingley and Baildon, and that's.
And are we separate? Is Bradford?
We're in the Bradford district,
right.
but my job is really to represent their interests, to make sure that they get the best deal. It's one of my frustrations. I always say that no one ever asks the MPs for Bradford what they're doing for Shipley or Bingley. But they always ask the MP for Shipley what he's doing for Bradford. And so, I mean, look, Naz is right. We work together as MPs, in recent years to help with different things, whether it was the Media Museum. I've helped to get some funding from the government for the Odeon. And we're all working together to try and get the Northern Powerhouse rail station to be based in the city centre, because that's vital for the regional economy, which would benefit my area as well. So, look, Naz is right. We all work together. Whether we have a shared interest in Bradford as a district, we all work together to try and achieve the best possible outcome. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my job isn't to do what's best for Bradford. My job is to do what's best for Shipley and Bingley and Baildon and the villages around it, because that's the people who I represent. And
surely that has an impact on.
It does, exactly. We want Bradford to be successful, and like I say, that's why I've helped get the money for the Odeon. That's why I'm very passionate about Northern Powerhouse Rail having a station stop in Bradford City Centre. Absolutely. I support Bradford City. I'm a season ticket holder at Bradford City, for goodness sake, with my children. So, yes, absolutely. We want Bradford to do well. But my first port of call is to make sure that Shipley, Bingley and Baildon and those villages do well. That's the most important thing for me.
Okay, nice.
I think for me, ideally, what I'm campaigning on, the manifesto that we've launched today, is that we deliver that manifesto. And the way we deliver it is we get into government, so we're going to be campaigning hard to be able to deliver. And especially in Bradford, and Bradford has got some of the most deprived wards in the country. We need real investment in education. We've had lots of cuts in education in the schools, whether it's right through from nursery up to schools, and people are really. The council funding that's been cut, we've had over half its budget slashed. That's the kind of thing that I'll be campaigning for. If we win the election, then we will be in government, and we will be reversing the cuts that we've had and we've experienced over the last 10 years, and to put services back in the communities where they're needed. So that's what I'll be campaigning on. In terms of Bradford, there are lots and lots of things that are really, really important to people, certainly in Bradford West, and some of those campaigns right now around the firework issue, around the dangerous driving, around the crime issue. those are and littering. So I'm very, very supportive of the work that Bradford for Better are doing, because that's been a phenomenal grassroots programme that has kind of like come led by Naya Shah. I mean, I've known Naya Shah in my previous hats as an NHS commissioner, when I've worked in the voluntary sector, and I'm really, really proud of that kind of solution focus from the community, raising up and taking ownership of the issues, and actually becoming a campaign body in Bradford. So I'm doing a lot of work and supporting making Bradford better with that as well.
Fantastic. And Philip, you mentioned earlier that you're working together in terms of obviously the Northern Powerhouse has been a hotly debated topic here in the North, and people feel that it's just a marketing ploy. There's nothing really happening, because obviously it was launched by the governments that the Conservatives were part of from 2015 onwards. And people are saying that there's still no investment coming here. There's still, we're talking about the rail, that's still not happening, and it's just all shop talk. What do you have to say to that?
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, it's not happening fast enough. But look, the reason why the Northern Powerhouse initiative started is because actually, after 13 years of Labour being in office, they did absolutely nothing for the infrastructure in the North. Absolutely nothing. And so we found ourselves massively behind the curve. And the problem with infrastructure is that you can't just, it's not like a tap you can turn on and all of a sudden there's loads of roads and loads of extra rail and all the rest of it. It takes a lot of time to build that up. And I'm really proud that the Conservatives actually put this on the agenda. Actually, my other half estimate of it, she always says that the country's like an aeroplane only running on one engine, the south, and we need the other engine to be working too. And I think the Conservative Party see the potential of the North as an economy. And in this country, the Bradford, Liverpool, places like that were the heart of the British economy years ago, and we want to get back to that former glory. But these things take time to lay all the track, to electrify the track. It takes years to do all of this, to build new roads. But all of this is in the pipeline.
It's been 4 years since 2015 when it was first.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've been electrifying the railways, and that's obviously, whenever you build infrastructure and put infrastructure in, it causes disruption. I mean, everybody knows that if you start building a new road, there'll be roadworks while it's all being done, and the same happens with the railways. When you electrify in the routes, it means that for a while there's disruption. There's no way around that. So we have had disruption, which is really frustrating, particularly for commuters. But it's only happening because the investment is going in to electrify the routes, to have more roads. I'm hoping for Shipley Eastern Bypass, which the government have committed after the feasibility study that they want to implement. We're having Northern Powerhouse Rail. Well, these things take years to build. But at least this government's put this on the agenda and decided this is the way forward. And I have to say that the West Yorkshire Combined Authority have had fortunes poured into them to help with infrastructure projects in West Yorkshire. I'm not always happy about how they spend it, but they can't say they haven't had much money. They've had fortunes compared to what they've had in the past.
Interesting claims. Naz, what do you
have
to
say?
say?
Talk about the Labour government beforehand, which because Philip's been there a lot longer. But what I can say is that the Labour government, if we're in government after the 12th of December, after the election, we've launched a manifesto which is very transforming. It's transformational, it's brave, it's bold, it's forward thinking, and that would really, really contribute to power, real devolution of power to the North. And I'm not convinced that the government has done enough to have that devolution of power. I'm really, really
What would you do?
We'd not just be building infrastructure. You need good business as well. So we'd be introducing regional banks to be able to put money into the economy, to set up businesses, real support to grassroots communities to build up and it's a radical and it's very, very transformational. But I think it's visionary, and I think it's there's an idea of what the country used to be years and years and years ago, when we had investment, when we had and the good old days. I think we can go back to those good old days of the country, and I think our manifesto offers that. It definitely offers that to the region, to the devolution, power in the North. 4 years, I think the Conservative Party has been too bothered about infighting with Brexit rather than focusing on regional and local and national policies.
Philip, I just want to go back to what Philip said. The West Yorkshire Combined Authority has had a lot of money. Do you think they have?
I think all the councils. It's one thing giving West Yorkshire Combined Authority some money, but it's another thing being absolutely decimating local services, which is what's happened under this government and over the last 9 years. Well, under the coalition government as well. And that started there, but it's carried on and carried on. And right now, all we're getting is, well, we're going to throw so much money at it. We're going to go throw so much money at it. But actually, you know, the money that the Tories are actually pledged to spend a lot more than Labour. There's no costing on this. You know, for example, the housing. Let's look at housing in Bradford. We only had, I think it was less than a few hundred houses built over the last so many years. You know, we only had one in 1718 of social housing built in Bradford, one single house, right? So we've got over 1100, I think it is, people on the waiting list for social housing, and we haven't got that. And that infrastructure needs to be invested. So those cuts that have happened over the last 9 years have impacted on people who are now waged on housing lists. Homelessness has increased. Use of food banks. You know, I was talking to a lady at the food bank, Frances, at the Met Food Bank, and she's like, you know, the phenomenal growth here in food banks is just not indicative of a government that is running the country for the people. I don't see that. I just don't agree with that at all.
You've got this very puzzled look on your face, Philip. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, the thing is, the thing that always strikes me is that the Labour Party always say, oh look, Bradford Council have had to cut spending to make ends meet. But they don't follow the logic through and accept that that's exactly what the national government's had to do. That's why it had to cut spending, was to make ends meet. And it seems to me bizarre that you can say, well, it's absolutely fine for the Bradford Council to cut spending to make ends meet, but it's absolutely outrageous for the government to cut spending to make ends meet. You've got to be consistent about these things. And the only reason why we had to control spending was because, as we all know, the note left by Liam Byrne when he left the Treasury in 2010, good luck, there is no money. That's why we had to cut spending. He left that note behind because that was it. The cupboard was empty, and we were left with the.
But the Tories are now starting to spend. They're now saying they're going to put more money in refurbishing hospitals, building hospitals, putting more police out. So does that mean the Conservatives are saying austerity has ended? And
yes, it's taken 9 years to overcome the mess that was left by the last Labour government with the biggest budget deficit in our peacetime history. It's been an absolute slog. And lots of sacrifices have had to have been made. There's no painless way out of massive debts. Every family in the country knows that there's no painless way out of huge debts. We've gone through that pain, we've got ourselves back on an even keel, and we're now in a position where we can start to responsibly increase spending on our public services, on the health service, on schools, on police, on things that matter to people. The last thing we now need at this moment in time is to literally go back to where we started back in 2010 by bankrupting the country, which is what Jeremy Corbyn and his Marxist economics would do. I mean, that is the last thing the British public need, is to literally, we now need to go back to what we always used to do in this country, which is to responsibly increase spending in a sustainable way so that there's some certainty for the future. We do not want to go back to the bust that we had under the last Labour government, which we would certainly have if we ever had a Marxist Prime Minister and a Marxist Chancellor.
But the cuts have, as Naz said, impacted. I mean, food bank statistics are showing more and more people are using food banks. More people, especially in Bradford, are below the poverty line. So obviously these announcements, that if you're saying austerity has ended, does that mean local councils are now going to see their budgets increasing, or is that still going to stay as low as it is? And
hopefully we will now start seeing increases in public spending across the board, but obviously focusing mainly on the biggest priorities, which are the health service, the education and the police. So yes, I appreciate it's been painful. Like I say, there's no painless way out of huge debt, and any politician who promises you a painless way out of huge debt is lying to you. It's common sense. People, particularly in Yorkshire, we know these things.
People have died for it.
No, look, all I know is that when you say people have died, of course people have all. Labour now promised that nobody will die under a Labour government. Is that? I mean, what does that mean that people have died?
There's been some tragedies. I mean,
there's been huge tragedies. So let's just put to bed the whole myth that the Tory government inherited this whole deficit because of the Labour government. Actually, that wasn't true. It's not true.
It is true.
It inherited a banking crisis. That's what you inherited. You inherited a country, not just a country, but a whole world world that was in financial crisis in 2008 because of the banks. So let's not blame.
No, that's not true,
government.
Bess. Look, well, it is true, but look, that's misleading. It is true. There was a banking crisis, but the difference is that in the history of this country, what's always happened, you have an economic cycle. In the good times, you put money aside. In the bad times, it means that you don't need to cut spending because you can use the surplus that you've built up over the good times in order to smooth out that. The problem was when the crash came, because Gordon Brown believed he'd ended boom and bust, he was borrowing money in the good times, he wasn't putting money aside. So when the bad times came, there was no money in the cupboard. That is the problem.
No, these were unprecedented. We're going to agree to disagree on this.
I think, yes.
These were unprecedented, times where the whole world was in a financial crisis. It wasn't just the Labour government under Gordon Brown. But let's just talk about borrowing and the idea that under Jeremy Corbyn we'll be borrowing. The truth is the Tories have committed to borrowing much, much more. They've not costed what I haven't seen. I'm looking forward to a Tory manifesto, but there's no costed out solutions here, whereas our manifesto is absolutely fully costed.
It's not costed at all.
And it was last time as well.
There are a lot of things that Jeremy is trying to bring, like, for example, free broadband for everybody.
Yeah, it's costed at 20 billion, and it's actually
it's costed, but there's no idea how it's going to be paid for.
It's absolutely clear. If we look at the Tory Party donations alone, we're talking about billionaires recently. Majority of the billionaires, I think it's 2/3 of the Tory funding comes from these billionaires who have tax breaks, who have tax reliefs. Come on, this is not a sign of a just and fair society.
The Labour manifesto says in itself that our annual spending is going to go up by £90 billion a year. That doesn't include the £400 billion National Transformation and Green Transformation Fund. It doesn't include £195 billion of nationalising companies. It doesn't include the cost to the public sector of a 4-day working week, which we're all going to have, estimated about £17 billion a year.
Philip, how do we all run at the moment? How does the rail and the water companies and everything run at the moment? It runs because there's money in there.
But you're going to buy them all. It's going to cost you £196 billion. Who's going to pay for that?
But that will generate an income. To have this idea that you're going to have...
I think we could talk about budgets and finances all day long. Shall we move on to our next subject, which is education? Because obviously investment, it is very, very important. And I clearly can see both of you have got completely different views on how this is going to happen. But obviously it is for the electorate to decide as to who they think is more swaying towards their views or their ideas. But let's talk about education. Obviously education has been a big issue for Bradford. We've been at the bottom of the tables for quite some time. We've seen a little bit of an improvement, but still we're not above average. So what will you do if elected, in terms of the education for Bradford?
If our government will put the right investment in, we won't have the cuts that we faced under the Tory government. And 9 years of this whole idea that we've had to tighten our purse and difficult decisions had to be made. We're the 6th richest country in the world. Austerity was a political choice. It wasn't something that we had to do to balance the books. There were many other ways that we could have balanced the books, and it shouldn't have been at the expense of those people like Bradford West, like the people in Bradford who have not had the right investment in education, not had the right investment in the public sector, not had all of that for 10 years.
But what else do you think we can do apart from putting in investment money, in terms of giving, because obviously Bradford has the largest young population outside of Europe.
Absolutely.
So, these people are our future, these young people are our future, and if education is at the bottom, then that's something that is going to need a lot more.
What it needs is it needs genuine commitment, leadership and investment. That's what Bradford needs. Bradford needs that, and that comes from government ultimately.
And if Labour was elected, how would they do that?
We would put the investment into the schools. We would be absolutely wanting less than 30 children in every class. We'd be giving free school meals. We'd be giving, the good old days again about, having preschool meals for children. I think it's absolutely right, because at the moment, what we're seeing over the last 10 years, we have seen kids going to schools, being served lunches earlier because they've not had breakfast. That is the reality of what people are telling us. People are telling us they're having to go to food banks for food. That isn't, that's not good for children's learning. Children need to have a full, they go to school on a full stomach and have and looking forward to learning, enjoying all of that, and have their future prospects set out from them early years. We'll be reinvesting in Show Starts, which again were taken away by the Tory government. And the coalition will be putting all that investment back and taking it back and winding the clock back and getting it so that the children have a future, and not just for young children, but also once they've left that, we don't want young people to start off their lives in debt, and we want them to have a free education, and that includes no tuition fees.
Well, look, I mean, Labour's solution to every problem is just throw money at it and hope that it goes away, and that doesn't work. I mean, look, when Bradford has been bottom of the education league table for many, many years, including when Labour were in office. So this idea they just throw money at it and all of a sudden all these problems will disappear is just not the case. And yes, we do need to invest more in schools, and the government's already announced that over the next 3 years they're going to get a big increase in cash. The government has had Bradford as an education opportunity area, which has come with lots of support and lots of extra money as well, and the government have committed to continuing.
That hasn't even filled the hole that you've taken out.
Continuing with that afterwards. Look, Carlton Bollin School in Bradford was a school that was required improvements. Under this regime that we've had, that's apparently been that no school can ever prosper, the head teacher of that school turned it into an outstanding school within 2 years. So this idea that all you need is just throw money at the problem and the school will go forward, and that if you don't have the money it'll go backwards, is just not true. Leadership in the schools is probably the single biggest factor in whether a school is successful or not. And David Horn at Beckfoot School in my constituency proved that, and Adrian Neeshaw at Carlton Bollin has proved that too. So we need good leadership in the schools as well, and we also need to raise aspiration in many places, where we need role models in schools, because lots of the problems are that people don't have realistic role models, they don't have proper aspiration. We need to do lots of that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what is the most important to improve people's prospects are job opportunities. We've got 3.5 million more people in work now than we did in 2010. That's 1,000 more people in work every single day since 2010. That's what we're all about, is providing those opportunities for people to get on the ladder and aspire to something better. And that's really the secret of it. We need more money in schools, yes, absolutely. We're going to continue with the education area. We want better leaders in schools who've shown that they can transform it. But we also need role models, more aspiration and job opportunities for people. And that's what this Conservative government's all about.
So this whole idea, and I just want to, but the whole idea that we've got more people in jobs, we've got more people in insecure work than we've ever had before. We've had more people on 0-hour contracts. We've got more people, and this idea
isn't true.
It is absolutely true.
It's just not true. The number of 0-hour contracts has gone down over the last year. The ONS figures show that 3/4 of all the new jobs created are full-time permanent jobs. That's the ONS official. They're the official figures from the Office of National Statistics. It's no good just asserting otherwise and hoping that people will believe you.
The truth is, if you put it from a common sense perspective, let's put the figures and the statistics to one side. The common sense perspective is, when you have a healthy economy, there is no need for food banks. Just that one fact alone that we have.
Were the food banks under Labour? Were the food banks under the last Labour government?
Like this way, but
were the food banks under the last Labour government?
I remember a food bank under the Labour government.
Well, there were food banks. There were food banks under the last Labour government. There's been food banks food banks have become an international phenomenon. They've been in Germany, they've been in Canada, growing massively all over the world. They started in this country under the last Labour government. They started in this country under the last Labour government.
But the growth is exponential.
Yes.
The growth of that, Philip, is absolutely exponential in places.
Yes, and
like
the way
that.
to get people out of poverty is through work. And we've got 3.5 million more people in work, and the people. Wages are now outstripping prices. That's what's happening in the economy. That's the way to improve things.
We have any lack of aspiration. Personally, for me, I feel absolutely insulted for the people that we don't have aspiration. The aspiration for people in Bradford is absolutely amazing. We have more entrepreneurial spirit anywhere outside of London, we have it right here. We have the youngest population in the whole of Europe. We have more business startups in Bradford than anywhere else in the country outside of London.
Well, we won't do if Corbyn gets in.
And those aspirations,
Sure.
let me tell you, those aspirations, the only reason they're not realised is because of the structure that doesn't allow those aspirations to thrive, is a structure of not being able to access finance, and the regional banks would provide that. The structure of not having those jobs to be able to go to Bradford, where, you know, the combined authority, I really want to see more investment in Bradford rather than it becoming the little brother to Leeds. And I really don't like the idea of having a separate Shipley, and you know, which Philip advocates for, because unity speaks volumes for us. So I feel the idea we don't have aspiration, I think, is an absolute insult to young people, because there is so much aspiration in the city. I just think what we don't have is the condition for that aspiration to reach the levels it can reach. That's what I think. And under a Labour government, we would be providing that.
Well, let's move on to talking about something a bit different from investment and cuts. Let's talk about racism. Obviously, both parties have recently been at the forefront in terms of the racism issue. The Conservatives have been, it's been alleged that there's a lot of Islamophobia in the Conservative Party, and obviously Labour has been accused of anti-Semitism. So let me ask you both the question, do you think that there is an Islamophobia issue in your party?
No.
Okay, what reasons?
I've been in the Conservative Party for 30 odd years. I've never seen any example of it.
But a Tory candidate has just been suspended.
Well, look, if in a party, if there's people with views that are unacceptable, they have and will be weeded out. But they are very much an exception, very, very much an exception. And you absolutely cannot equate that to the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is being investigated by the Equality and Human Rights Commission.
But Boris
for goodness sake,
Johnson,
the only political party ever to be investigated by the Equality and Human Rights Commission over their racism with
Boris
anti-Semitism.
Johnson referred to Muslim ladies who wear the veil as letterboxes, and that increased. That led to an increase in hate crimes, so surely...
Well, I don't accept that led to an increase in hate crime. I mean, you can put two things together. Well, no, who knows what... I mean, did any perpetrator of a hate crime say, "Oh, it was because Boris Johnson said that"? Of course, cause and effect are two different things, and I don't accept the premise of the question. Look, Boris uses colourful language. He always has done. He always will do. But I don't think that anybody can...
What's your view on it, Philip? On Boris's colourful language that you call it?
Well, I think if we take colourful language out of politics, it's going to get even more dull for people. I don't have a problem with colourful language. Language isn't. It's people. It's words and languages aren't important. It's what people think. It's the motivation behind what people say that counts. No word in itself is offensive. It's the context in which it's used that makes language offensive. And so, please don't possibly equate the very, very rare examples in the Conservative Party with the institutional anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, which has been investigated by the Equality and Human Rights Commission.
But you have a respected member of the Conservative Party, Baroness Warsi, continuously championing and putting forward that she wants to deal with the Islamophobia problem within the Conservative Party. So what do you have to say?
Yes, well, Baroness Varsi's got her own agenda. I mean, her highlight, I think, of the Conservative Party was losing the election in Dewsbury. I think her whole career was being built out of losing a general election campaign, and you know, she wants to keep raising her profile. Look, I don't know. All I can speak from is my own personal experience. I have not experienced this. I have not seen it. If there is an issue with anybody, they should be weeded out. As far as I'm aware, any example that's ever been brought to anybody's attention, they have been weeded out, which is in absolute stark contrast to the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, which is institutionally anti-Semitic. Under Jeremy Corbyn, he's associated all his life with these people. They're his core supporters. That's why he can't deal with them, because they're the people who prop him up in his position.
What do you have to say to what Philip has just said?
So I've got lots to say to what Philip has just said. So first of all, let's be clear, the Conservative Party has also been referred to the Equality and Human Rights.
It hasn't been investigated by them.
It's been referred. The decision is yet to be taken. But the truth is that in the last few weeks alone, you've had a Tory candidate, party parliamentary candidate, who was asked how many times he went to the mosque and how many times he prayed. He wasn't asked about anything else. You had a senior vice chair of that party resigning because he couldn't, he could not bring himself to remain in the Tory party. And this is a parliamentary candidate. You've had Bob Blackman retweeting Tommy Robinson, hosting Tap and Gauche, known Islamophobe, in Parliament, for which I personally raised a point of order. But it's absolutely wrong to say. So first of all, let's just make one statement really clear, and I hope you concur with it. There is no hierarchy between anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. They're both evils. They are both things that need rooting out. Now, saying that has to be held.
But Philip's
with
just
all of that.
made an allegation that Labour's got a big problem.
But Labour has absolutely, Jeremy Corbyn has said straight up that we haven't dealt with anti-Semitism like we should have done. We haven't dealt with it. If anything, but whenever we talk about anti-Semitism, the example given of how to deal with it was my experience of 2016 in how to respond to it, is acknowledge it and make a genuine, have that conversation, have that apology, but an acknowledgement and a genuine acknowledgement, and to build bridges. We haven't done that. We haven't done that how we should have done that, and that's been acknowledged. But to just suggest that it is just the Islamophobia isn't an issue, and to suggest that language, this colourful language, I absolutely disagree with you, Philip. Because what I struggle with is when you're in positions of leadership, you have a responsibility of the language that you use. And you cannot dismiss the 376% rise of attacks on Muslim women following Boris Johnson's comments of the burqa and letterboxes and bank robbers, to completely dismiss that as saying, oh well, is it who knows? I think it's irresponsible. And I think it's irresponsible because it's not acknowledging. You've had a leadership debate in which your Prime Minister committed to having an independent inquiry. That was watered down when Sajid Javid said it was going to have an inquiry, and now it's taken the guise of having a prejudice inquiry into prejudice. Well, no. The Tory party have got an issue, a problem with Islamophobia. It needs to take a good look. You cannot advocate for one. You can't, in Yorkshire we say you can either be pregnant or you're not. You can't be a bit pregnant. You can't decide you're going to fly the flag for human rights on one issue when it's anti-Semitism and not fly it for Islamophobia. Both of them are equal evils, and they lead to pain, they lead to persecution, they lead to death, and we have had deaths. And Christchurch did not happen in a vacuum, and for anybody to suggest that we haven't got an issue with Islamophobia in this country and it's not in the Tory party is a delusion. It's an absolute delusion.
This accusation that Labour want to try and divert attention away from the fact that they are institutionally anti-Semitic, and everybody knows that. People in the Jewish community are absolutely petrified of Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister. Absolutely petrified of Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister. And what they're trying to do is to, well, exactly. Yeah. What they're trying to do is to try to divert attention. Say, oh well, they're just as bad with Islamophobia.
No,
that is absolutely offensive. It's untrue. It can't be equated. Any problems that we've had have been well weeded out and dealt with. The Labour Party are being investigated by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. That should be a shameful situation for the Labour Party. And to actually just say, oh well, actually it's no worse than the Conservative Party with Islamophobia. Completely untrue.
I am not saying it's not shameful to be in a position where we're being investigated. It's absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying, because there is no room for whataboutery in this, which is why I made the statement there is absolutely no hierarchy between the two.
I agree.
What I am
we
saying
don't have an issue with one. You do have an issue with yours.
We are saying we haven't dealt with this properly. It's absolutely right to address it. What you're saying is we don't have a problem in the first instance. That's the difference. The difference is, Philip, that we're saying we have something. We had an independent investigation.
Which was a whitewash.
We've had one independent investigation. We've had Lord Falkland looking into it. We're building bridges. We're having a conversation in comparison to saying, do you know what? This doesn't affect us at all. We don't have an Islamophobia. We've just got people who bring in Islamophobes. We've just got people who retweet Islamophobes. We've just got people who have been suspended. We've got people who are brought in through the back door, and we're not even talking about investigating them. That's the difference, Philip, between the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. And none of them, wherever wherever the issue is, whether it's Islamophobia or whether it's to have this whataboutery, I absolutely agree.
That's what Labour are doing, the whataboutery.
Well, this is a debate that could continue for another a few weeks, I think. So let's, our 30 minutes are almost over now. So before we wrap up, we're just going to ask you guys to quickly tell your electorate or the people of Bradford why they should vote for the Conservative, why they should vote for Labour, and why they should re-elect you, Philip, for Shipley, and you, Shah, for Bradford West. Over to the camera.
I'll let you go first.
Well, the reason why people should vote Conservative is for twofold, because we've got our economy back on track. We've got out of the mess that the Labour government left us back in 2010, and the main reason is we do not want a Marxist Chancellor and a Marxist Prime Minister taking this country back to the economic mess that we had before. In fact, we're way beyond it. They want us to be Venezuela, which has got 1,000,000% inflation. Jeremy Corbyn said he wanted an economy like Venezuela. That is what is at stake in this election. We want to get Brexit done and stick to the priorities of the country, investing in the health service, in schools, cutting crime, not having more referendums on Europe and dithering and delaying forever and a day. So that's why people should vote Conservative. I hope people will vote for me in Shipley because I stand up for what I believe in, I'm straight talking, I'm independently minded, I don't want a job in the government, and I speak out and represent the best interests of my constituents. And I hope that locally and nationally people will vote Conservative.
Oh, look, I hope that we have a Prime Minister in Jeremy Corbyn who can absolutely introduce a radical, transformational manifesto for the people of Bradford West and for the people of this country. And the reason I hope that is because we will end 10 years of austerity. We will be spending less than what the Tory government is saying that they will be spending. We will be spending fully costed. We will be giving people a £10 an hour wage, which is bringing living standards up. We will be investing in all the schools and giving children free school meals. We will be giving the opportunity to young people to start off their lives free of debt and free of tuition fees. We will be giving free prescriptions. We will be doing even free initial checks from dentistry. We will be building an economy and infrastructure which really, really devolves power all the way up to the north, and that includes nationalisation of the rails. We will stop this price hike of being able to travel. We will stop this north-south divide. We will give children the very best starts with our Sure Start. We will be giving elderly people the care that they deserve when they're over 65 and not being robbed. And we will be giving regional businesses the opportunity to have investment. Young people in Bradford West, for example, to go to regional banks, to access the money that they need, to tap into that aspiration that they have to live amazing lives and build business and build their communities, build their economies, and have what we can do as the sixth richest country in the world is to have a life which is happy and a prosperous future for our children. Not a Tory government, not a Prime Minister who just lies through his back teeth on things, who's been investigated for conflicts of interest, who's been an organisation that's been, itself been referred to the Equality and Human Rights Commission for their issue with Islamophobia. We want a government which doesn't have a woman problem, a man at the helm who doesn't have a woman problem, which what you'll find in Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson cannot be trusted. His Trump alliance with the NHS could literally privatise our NHS, and we want our country to be taking the lead on what our people need and want and get. That's why I really hope people do vote for Labour in this general election and return me to be their MP in Bradford West, because the one thing Philip and I will agree on is that we both speak our minds and we are outspoken. It's not through fear or favour of anybody, it is for our constituents, and I'm certainly invested in bringing the best into Bradford and supporting people and representing them the best to best of my ability in Parliament.
Thank you. And that's it from us. Hopefully we'll catch you again every Sunday. Let's talk with Asian Sunday. Thank you.